Hello, hello, hello. So while people come in here, let me play the 30-second timer so we all can watch this show at one time. First of all, I do not do this often, but I want to give Sunny Hostin her props today because she spoke facts. And nowadays, speaking facts meaning you're speaking like a conservative. And to me, she was speaking like a true journalist slash conservative that I hope that she still is, because she said she got conservative values, right? And today on the show, they talked about Joe Biden going to Saudi Arabia, meeting the king, and it's just a whole bunch of hypocrisy around that. I'm not sure if any of you guys watched the show today. On the View, I just looked at the clip and watched them discuss the whole Joe Biden's visitation to Saudi Arabia, and it was like, you know what, a bunch of hypocrisy. It really is. But let me check and see if I'm live because I don't know if you guys are in here, if y'all can hear me, if y'all can see me. Hold on, let me check if I'm live so I won't keep yip yapping. Let me check. All right, so I am live. I don't know if anybody's in here. If anyone's in here, I'm going to play the clip. If anybody missed any part of the episode today, I'm going to play the clip, and then I'm going to come back with some more commentary about it. Let's see. I think this is part one. I believe this is part one. Yeah, it's part one.
This weekend, President Biden took a trip to Saudi Arabia, in part to negotiate for cheaper oil, but the very first moment he met with Saudi Crown Prince is making all the headlines because they greeted each other with a fist bump, which many felt was inappropriate since the prince is accused of approving the murder of Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi, among other human rights violations. And it's so amazing to me because...
And that's hypocritical because Joe Biden, before he got into the White House, he has a tweet out there saying that Saudis will pay for doing what they did to that journalist. And look at him. Fist pumping the king.
Literally. We do this often. We say we're not going to talk to these people, we're not going to do it, and then suddenly you're having to figure out how you converse with them because you've got to deal with them. But I just wanted to read something someone handed me, which was, unfortunately, sometimes you have to make decisions. That was me. I did just say that. He didn't have to go to Saudi Arabia, however, to find a country that's violating human rights or a country that's opposing women. Because plenty of states that we live in are doing the same thing, remove protected rights from women, disallowing them.
Well, hold on. So I want to stop. I literally want to stop Whoopi Goldberg in her commentary about Saudi Arabia and the way they do their laws and how they are with women. So I want to stop her there. And I wish someone that was educated on culture, religion, geopolitical politics, but none of them are actually educated on that, can stop her and say, Saudi Arabia, which I don't agree with, mix their religion and politics together. There's a thing called Sharia law. And so they base their politics under the foundations of what the Quran expresses. And so women, they have to cover. And this is what I say all the time. So all the Brittany Griners and all of these celebrities that want to go to other countries, y'all need to educate yourself on people's laws in other countries, because once you enter their territory, the fact that you're an American citizen means zero or close to zero. So I wish somebody would have stopped her, because she says a lot of incorrect stuff when she said that how they treat women. A lot of women over there see that as normal. It's their life. It's their living. Okay. A lot of women here in America who are Muslim are raised that way by their parents. I personally was raised under the foundations of what Muslim is and everything, because I have two parents that come from overseas. So how women are perceived and raised over there is very normal to me, because I'm very multifaceted. I'm multicultural. So the conditions and the living that they have over there is very normal. Okay, so I wanted to stop her, and I wish somebody would have. That's why they need somebody on that show to stop this woman who's a moderator, Whoopi Goldberg, who believes everything that she says is correct. Somebody needs to check her.
Control over their bodies. So I just want to
no,
say,
control over their bodies. Stop. Again, in a Muslim religion, having an abortion is a sin. Okay, again, that's the religion. You don't have to like it, but you got to respect it. You see what I mean? She says a whole bunch of wrong stuff.
So I think part of the big problem that we have is our own hands are dirty quite often.
Well, and let's not forget that Trump was pals
She
with
always
Putin
bringing Trump,
and
always.
Kim Jong. He practically had them in the Lincoln bedroom. I mean, he was really...
Trump is not president anymore. Joy Behar has Trump derangement syndrome. He is not president. He hasn't been president for how long now? Almost 2 years? He's not president. Stop bringing him up. Joe Biden is president, not Trump. So just because one person does one thing, don't mean you got to bring up the past presidents.
Really interested in being with those guys. So this is just somebody, I think, I mean, I do defend Biden quite a bit.
You do.
I know, but
you're an elitist,
it's
biased
like,
Democrat.
If Manchin and some of these Republicans would allow the industries just cut back on fossil fuels and get alternative fuels going, he wouldn't have to, fist bump this guy, who, by the way, he did say to him, I think that you were responsible for Khashoggi's death. And the guy goes, no. And he says, well, I think you have. I mean, he did confront him. There's one more thing I wanted to say, because I do understand that, that some 9/11 families might be annoyed with that, because the conventional wisdom is that those terrorists came from Saudi Arabia. So there is a personal feeling about it.
Yeah, so Osama bin Laden is from Saudi Arabia. I mean, allegedly, he did 9/11. Allegedly. I'm not sure if that's even actually true 21 years later. Or even what happened actually happened 21 years later. But we all know that people have passed away from, we all know the towers were attacked, right? But I'm not sure if the actual story was true, especially now with this whole COVID and the Iraqi war and all the lies that we've been told. It's fair to say that we all have a justification, if you are an independent thinker, to question stuff. Because if you don't question stuff and you just take things as they are and what they are from these commentators, it's like you are in utopia. You are a robot. Okay, you are basically a maid, and you are a victim of human trafficking, and you're obeying the rules of your master. That's what you're doing. So, yes. So if I was a victim, and these family members and my family member passed away, because of actions that took place in 9/11, you best believe I would be pissed off. But you guys also have to realize the president we have now is a warmonger and is a war criminal. So him going to Saudi Arabia to visit this prince is nothing. It's like eating a piece of cake. I mean, this man has committed tons of war crimes, worse than Putin, okay? Iraq, Afghanistan. I mean, he served under the Obama administration. He worked for Obama. Obama's another one. Syria, Yemen, Somalia, all these places that Obama bombed. So, the fact that Saudi Arabia took the life of an American journalist, and they're continuously bombing Yemen, and they have these supposed human rights violations over there amongst the women because their laws are different in the United States of America. That's very minimal to Joe Biden's 50-year career. That's small. That's just like the icing on the cake, because this man is no different than the Saudis. It's no different. It really is. Let's just be honest. Like, we're talking about human rights. This country commits human rights violations all the time. I mean, let's just be honest, with human trafficking, with wars, it's just on and on and on, bombing countries, for no reason. I mean, Joe Biden's administration recently bombed Afghanistan and killed like a family in Kabul because they thought that certain family member was under ISIS, and so they killed a family. And all the captain did was apologize on air. So, I mean, if anything, we're no different in Saudi Arabia. I mean, we just live in a supposed democracy, but we're no different.
Again, I don't know if Biden had the choice.
But listen, you just talked about the 9/11 family, so let me bring something up that I think is incredibly relevant. Look, I hate this image. I hate, and whenever the United States president goes to any country, it is legitimizing, normalizing, aggrandizing that other president.
Let me go to
Obama
Sonny.
went to see
She's a Democrat. Hold on, I don't got time to listen to her.
Holding the, and that is not a,
But I don't think that Biden did with Trump doing it. I don't agree.
U.S. interest. That's about mullah.
Okay.
Are you saying that that these Republicans suddenly should cop to the hypocrisy? That's a big ask.
And that's the thing. No, I don't agree with these Trump apologists that have no problem with Trump doing it. I had a problem when Trump did it, but I don't think that Biden gets a pass just because he's a Democrat, just because he's a Democratic president. You know, I think that it's bad no matter how you look at it. And we shouldn't be here saying, well, Trump did it, so it's okay that Biden did it. It's just not okay. In my view, I understand that he was there because of the oil prices. I understand that we should be taxing American oil companies that are gouging Americans. That's really what we should be doing. But
Jill Manchin.
Yeah, that's what we should be doing. But the bottom line is, this was an unforced error. You know, the White House is saying, well, it's because of COVID he was fist bumping. Well, I don't know. He was shaking hands with people in Israel. He was shaking hands with people with the Palestinian Authority. He didn't have a mask on, and he's fist bumping this guy who is clearly a murderer. And then you have, you know, Khashoggi's widow, really fiance, who's tweeting things like, you know, what Jamal Khashoggi would tweet today. Hey, POTUS, is this the accountability you promised for my murder? I think, again, you know, this is a murderer. You don't normalize a murderer by this fist bump. It was the photo op that he wanted, and we've normalized these relationships.
Is he really normalizing it?
Yes,
Because everybody who has a brain looking at it and saying,
no, Joy, I think this is the rehabilitation that MBS wants, and Joe Biden gave that to him.
Okay, so let's be honest here. Let's just be honest here, as I am usually. Let's be honest, okay? Going to Israel, going to Palestine, going to Saudi Arabia, wherever you're going, okay? You know, our president, unfortunately, Joe Biden, is no different than the king of Saudi Arabia, is no different than the prime minister of Israel, or even the leader of the Palestinian Authority, who's reportedly been complicit about aligning peace with the Palestinians. So it's like, it's no different, okay? Now, let's say if we had Trump, okay, we're talking about a man who's been in office for 50 years versus Donald Trump, who's been in politics for 4 years. I would have said, you know what, there is a difference because Trump isn't a warmonger like Joe Biden is. I mean, Joe Biden's been in office for 50 years. I mean, he signed off on the Iraqi war with George W. Bush. You know, he was okay with the Afghanistan war for the past, 20 plus years. He's a warmonger. I mean, he worked under the Obama administration, and Obama bombed the hell out of Syria, which he got scrutiny about. Yemen, Somalia, so many other places, no different than George W. Bush, no different than George H. Bush either. So it's like, I mean, let's just be honest here, because we're talking about Saudi Arabia and how they treat women and what they did to that journalist, but we're no different. Like I said, we are no different. At least Joe Biden. When I say we, I mean Joe Biden is no different. What this country does is no different than what Saudis do, or than what Israel does to Palestinians and stuff like that. It's no different. It's just a whole bunch of hypocrisy with a bunch of people, a whole bunch of criminals coming together and trying to align some type of business deal. And so just like by the life in me since day one, I've been saying, why are we putting sanctions on Russia? For what? Why? Why are we putting sanctions on Russia? It makes no sense, okay? It literally doesn't make any sense. It's very selective remorse. And Mark Lamont Hill talks about this. He talks about this working for his black news channel. And he was talking about how media outlets, Hollywood politicians, and everybody, they're so complicit. And they're talking about this Russia and Ukraine war when literally during the same week, we have other countries in the Middle East bombing the hell out of each other. But that's not being mentioned, i.e. Saudi Arabia is not being mentioned, Israel is not being mentioned, because we do business dealings with these countries. You know what I mean? And so by us being the bigger dogs when it comes to Ukraine, and Russia being a enemy and a kind of like sort of like a scaring thing for our nation, of course we're going to talk about Russia and Ukraine, because we're not doing business with Russia And if we are, it's very minimal. And we're definitely not doing business with Ukraine. And that's in Europe, right? And so they're going to acknowledge that news, but they're not going to acknowledge what Israel is doing illegally. They're not going to acknowledge what Saudi Arabia is doing illegally, this country, United States of America. And that's because we do business dealings. It's about money. It's about moolah, as Aaron Navarro said. And she's right about that. It's about money. And so, you know, what Mark Monhill was saying is it's a whole bunch of hypocrisy that we're talking about Ukraine and Russia when there were reports about Black Ukrainians being seen as second-class citizens because they were Black. There were reports about Israel bombing X country and Saudi Arabia bombing Y country, but that hasn't been publicized in the media because poor blonde hair, blue eyes people are being hurt in Ukraine. Let's just be honest, it's in Europe. It's in Europe. And there is a journalist on CBS that said, with all due respect, these things happen in the Middle East. They don't happen in Europe. Okay, so I mean, let's just be honest. It has to do with white privilege. It has to do with being white. You know, Middle East is so known and so branded and so positioned as countries where this is normalized, but Europe is seen as, oh, this doesn't happen. But I mean, situations have happened in Europe. Holocaust happened in Europe, right? Right? Didn't World War II, didn't that happen in Europe as well? I mean, other situations happen in Europe, but it's not as normalized, not branded, it's not as positioned. But so it's a whole bunch of hypocrisy. You know, I think this should be a non-story because it should not be surprised that someone of Joe Biden's record would do something like that. And it just doesn't make sense putting sanctions on Russia when Saudis bought extra oil from Russia and the oil you're trying to buy from Saudis and begging from Saudis are taken from Russia, that they bought it from. It makes zero sense. It makes zero sense. And I've been saying this from day one, you know, sanctions should have never been in place with Russia. Never. And then I have people saying, I have no remorse over the Ukrainian. Yes, I do. I just don't like their president. I don't like Vladimir Zelensky. I don't like him. I have remorse over the civilians. I don't like their president, you know, at all. And so, because he's full of shit. And so as we continuously send billions and billions and billions of our tax dollars overseas to probably align his pockets, you know, us as a country here, as a nation, we are suffering with gas prices, with rents, with food shortages, clothing shortages, high prices in food, you name it, rent going up, everything going up because of this man in the White House, right? And so, you know, if you want to vote Democrat in 2024, by all means, do you. You know, if you want to be brainwashed, do what you got to do. But this boy here is not brainwashed, all right? So anyways, with all being said, vote Republican in 2024. Don't vote a Democrat. And that's the end of this live.